So in this video, we're going to look at Cypress, and Cypress is a testing framework. I believe I did a video or a live stream or something uh, probably a couple years ago on Selenium, which is what I was using at the previous company I was working for. But I've gotten into Cypress since then and really love it. It's very helpful. So Cypress is JavaScript based, which is cool. That's great. You get a lot of functionality. There's so much cool stuff you can do, and it's free. I mean, they do have paid services, but they're services on top of what you get. It's more utilizing their online reporting, things like that. You could share tests with clients and stuff like that. And that's where it gets, you can, start racking up some bills, but to run it yourself and do it all on your own, it's totally free. And I want to take a look at it today. So I've got their site here, and I've also created a directory here and have that open in code here. So we're gonna go ahead and install this. So I copied that to the clipboard. We'll put that in the terminal here. And I've noticed sometimes this takes a little while. It gets hung up on some of the libraries, so don't freak out if it hangs for a while. And I'll probably skip ahead because this is the one that hangs right here. All right, and to start this, do npx Cypress open. And what this is going to do, it's going to open up a window to the app. And there's a couple of steps in the process of getting started with a Cypress project, and we'll walk through those. Opened on my other screen. Here we go. So I'll figure out where to place this later. And they recently updated. I don't know if people have used Cypress before, although you're probably not watching this if you have. There's some extra steps here now, and they've separated the end-to-end testing from component testing. And we're going to do end-to-end. So we're going to click this, and it says it's not configured. So it's going to walk us through some things. So it's just telling us that it created those files, which you see. That happened over there. And we'll say continue. For this video, we'll go ahead and keep with Chrome. So I'll make sure that's selected, hit start. All right, again, it opened on my other window here. Okay, so this screen here, actually, you can kind of just disregard for now. And let's go ahead and put that here for now, anyway. All right, so we have the option of getting this example scaffolding. Let's go ahead and do that. It does create a little bit of clutter, and we may just ditch these after we take a look at them. But we'll see if I can walk through some of these. I think some of them are kind of big, but so we'll stick to the smaller ones. So I just click this, and it's gonna create all these files in the Cypress directory over on the left there. All right, so now we have all of these tests, and I believe they're set up to hit a Cypress website by default. But let's go over here. We'll start with the to do. Let's see what that one is. So over here in Cypress, go to end to end, getting started, to do. So what I'm going to do before we walk through this code is I'll go ahead and run the test. And to run the test, just simply click on it over here. So what's going to happen when I click this is it's going to load a site, which I can see over there on the left is a Cypress site. And it's going to walk through the different parts of the test. Okay, so that went really quick. And what I might do in post is slow it down so you can see it. Let's take a peek at what happened here. Let's maybe make this bigger. So there's a hierarchy here, and I'll be honest, like I've kind of just learned Cypress as I've needed to, and I may get terms wrong. Forgive me. So, but the root here would be this describe, and then each of these checks here are its, which I believe stands for integrated test. And we scroll down, context here is a way to give like another level, like a group of integrated tests, a little bit of context, basically. I mean, it is what that's what it says. So it's a way to kind of group these individual tests here. And what you can do in here is you can open up what's going on here, and it will actually go back. It takes snapshots of what happened, which we solved some of it, but it went so fast that we probably didn't catch it all. But so you can actually see what was happening on each of these. You can see how the DOM changed and what happened, and all the tests passed, obviously. So we can see that in the green here. Let's go ahead and condense these again. So let's look at what it did. Okay, it displays two to-do items by default. We want to check to see. So that's okay. Back up. So what this is saying is it's checking to see that there are 2 display items when this first loads. So when it first loaded, that was true. There's 2 right here. All right. Now it's going to check to see if we can add a new one, and it's going to walk through that. And it did. Okay, and obviously because it passed. We're going to check and see if we can check this off. I'm not going to go through each, pull up each of these, but so check to see if you can cross off an item. So for the rest of the test, it's going to see if you can filter for uncompleted tasks, filter for completed tasks, and can delete all completed tasks. And looks like all of these passed. So let's take a peek over here again. Usually I like comments, but right now I feel like they're kind of in the way of the demonstration. But so again, describe, this is kind of grouping the entire bulk of this test, or I believe they call them suites of tests. Again, like I said, I'll probably botch some terms here. In my mind, this whole thing is a test. But so all of this is nested in this describe. And what's saying is before each of the tests, the integrated tests here, visit this. So actually, it almost looks like, yeah, okay, so that visit is in every one. It's not just starting it here at the beginning, but each one of these, it's going to reload that page. So this is a hook you can run before each test. And I believe that's within this context. So when we get into this with check task, I think there's another hook you can run, or another hook that handles that. So for those familiar with jQuery or even some query selecting in JavaScript now, very similar to that. You can use any normal selector you can use in CSS and jQuery. That's how you can find items. Okay, so what this is saying is look for the to-do list class, which I'm assuming is a UL tag, and get the LI tags. So it's going to get, in the case of when this first runs, okay, so there's 2 of them when it first loads. And so it's just check and say, yes, there's 2 of them. And that's why that passed. So now this is saying, okay, go back to that list and get the first list item. And we're checking to see that it should have text. So this first parameter is the thing that the type of thing we're looking for. And this is the value we're looking for. So it's checking to see that, and of course passed. Now we're going to look at the last one. Same thing. Okay, so the next test is see if we can add a new item. They're storing the name of that new item here in this constant. Okay, so here they're using a data attribute to select this time. So I'm assuming that's the input field here. And it's saying type that in. So now that we've typed that in there and hit enter, which is what that's doing there, we're going to grab the list again. We're going to check now to see if there's 3 of them. And now the last one should have the text of this new item we added. And so that passed. So most of these are pretty basic. So I'm not going to run through all these because I feel like we're just going to spend a lot of time with me repeating the same thing. So I'd say at the core, the simplest form of these tests, you're looking for elements in the DOM. You're grabbing them and you're checking to see stuff, to see if something's there, something isn't there, like it should be there, shouldn't be there. And that's how you determine if a test has passed. So let's make a new test. I'm going to expand this here. This UI's changed a little bit, so I might fumble around. Let's do a new spec. We'll do a new empty spec, and we will call it digital craft. And I like the fact that it's not technically empty. It's going to at least give you this kind of beginning template here. So, okay, run that spec. We're going to go elsewhere though here. Let's collapse this. And let's come over here and open our new test. So where we're going to go now is the digitalcraft.com. So this is a hot reloading situation here. So once I hit save, well, let me rephrase that. When you have the actual test running, sitting there, if this wasn't opened right now on the right, then it's obviously not going to hotly reload. So when I hit save, now it should visit the digital craft. And it did. And you are seeing all of the ridiculous requests to Google APIs going on in there. I'm probably going to be a little bit embarrassed once we start looking under the hood of this site because I haven't updated it in years. So probably a little messy. So I'm going to open up the Digital Craft site down here so that I can open up DevTools. Now you can open up DevTools within Cypress. That's a slightly different and it's incredibly helpful. But for what I want to do here, I'd prefer to just use a separate window here. So first off, we'll change this test name to site loads. Save. Now I don't know that I'm actually doing anything to verify that site loads, and I'm not going to worry about that for this example. Okay, so the example test showed us that we can look for an item and do some simple, does this contain this and how many are there types of things. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to navigate to another page. Let's give it some context. So sci.context training. Copilot's kind of failing me here. Okay, so that's pretty much what we wanted to do. So now if I hit save, it should load the site. No, I broke something. So I totally botched this, but I'm keeping this in the video. For one, this is not a method of sci. It is on its own. And you cannot run sci commands outside of a test. So we need to do an it that around this. Try that again. So loading the home page, going through all those ridiculous requests, and then loaded the private training page. Okay. So we've gotten to this page. Now, another way we could have done this is, instead of doing this, I'll go and comment this out. Let's right click, inspect. I believe I have IDs on these. Okay. So instead, let's do sci dot get training, and it's Copilot suggesting click, which is what I wanted. So we're going to use the click method. So in theory, this should have the same result. So yep, that worked. So that would be a way to, you know, check to make sure that the navigation actually worked. If it couldn't find that or the click didn't happen, you'd be alerted about that. Let's come back up here and let's check how many nav items are in the nav bar. So we'll do sci dot get. Now I'm just going to stop for a second. If we're looking at, we look at that suggestion, what I want to know is, does Copilot, is it suggesting that because it knows the URL is the digitalcraft.com, or is it suggesting it because that is actually the text of the H1 on the home page? I don't know. Craziness. Anyway. So what is, I'll do nav bar nav. Now, ideally, if you're, once you start writing tests for real, it's good practice to, I know Cypress at one time, I don't know if they've changed this or not, but they recommended using data tags with a convention, something simple like data-sci equals main nav or something like that. I believe the thinking there is that it's kind of a nice way to be able to add identifiers through your pages, all your elements, without messing with the actual ID of an item or things like that. I feel like it's just a nice way to separate what you're actually using IDs for, the purpose of those IDs on the site itself. You can separate that from the testing. But for this, I'm pretty sure there's only one nav bar nav, so we'll just roll with that for now. Hey, why don't we go ahead and do that? So, so first we'll check and see that it's visible. It's not a horrible thing to do. It's an easy check. And that passed. So, and if it didn't pass, you would have seen this would have failed, which meant this check would have been red. So actually, let's try something. I don't know if it's hidden. Let's try that. Yeah, so here is an example of what happens when it fails. So you will get this X, and up here it starts telling you how many failed, how many passed. So let's change that back to visible and get back to the train of thought I was actually on for the ADHD kicked in. So sci.get. Well, let's go ahead and we'll take that, but I know that that's not totally what we want. We want navbar nav ul, and I'm intentionally going to try and make this fail to test the theory with how I'm doing the selectors here. But let's go ahead and count how many we got. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So ideally we should have 7. I'm going to hide this or comment this out for a second so it doesn't keep running. We'll just do this first part. Okay, good. That's what I expected to happen. Now, if you look here, you'll get the result is that it expected 7, but it actually found 32. Actually didn't realize there was going to be that many, but I knew there would be more than 7. And the reason I did that is to illustrate how important these selectors are. I don't know what's going on here. Oh, this is, okay. Ignore that for now. So the way we're selecting this here is we're looking for any LI that is the descendant of UL, which in this case is going to include these drop downs. These are all LIs too. So now you can see why there'd be, a good 32 LIs found. So we don't want that for this particular test. So we want to make sure that we do a direct descendant. Now let's try it. Okay. Now I caught myself. This was not intentional, but I'm glad I did it. So I missed a step here because we're saying we're still actually getting all UL or all LIs that are direct descendant of ULs, but we actually only want, okay, actually, let me go even further back. I don't actually understand why this didn't fail to begin with, because navbar nav is the UL. So okay, still thoroughly confused. Okay, so that worked the way I wanted it to. Cannot wrap my head around how it was even working. Oh, I get it. Ha! All right. I really want to edit this out, but I'm not going to because I feel like this is important. So, duh. All right, the way we had it before, yes, this is a UL. But within that UL, there are other ULs. So there are actually more than 32 list items, I bet. If I go to the original way I should have broken this, hit save, should get an error and there should be more than 37. I'd imagine 39 maybe. Yep, cool. All right. I still feel stupid, but less stupid. All right, so put this back. Save that. All right, so I don't think I'm going to go any deeper into the tests for now. I just kind of wanted to introduce you to Cypress, how to get it installed, and how to do some real basic stuff to just kind of get the gist of what's going on. But I'll leave you with, I'll give you some examples of the way I use these. For one of my clients, which will be anonymous here, there is a checkout process for an event, and I need to check to make sure everything is happening throughout the, it's a multi-step process. There's, I don't know, 4 or 5 steps involved and multiple variations on the things that you are buying, different options and things you can add to it. So I need to check all of this stuff. It's very, very in depth. And we need to make sure that's always working so that the customer, the client's customer, can always get through that process, because that's how they make their money. So it's very important. On top of that, I've also found it very helpful to write these tests as kind of a way to automate my own debugging while developing. So I might have the official tests, which would run, nightly, or run. And that's another thing you can do with these things. You can set them up on schedules to just go out and run, and then send you a report, every night or something. An email that says, hey, all the tests passed or they all failed, something like that. Or you can have it set up to run anytime someone's trying to do a pull request. So you can make sure that a certain set of tests will run before anybody can get code merged in, anywhere near production. So that's great. But yeah, but I will write some tests that are separate from that, just when I'm trying to get through a process. It's like, for instance, that checkout process. I might copy what I did for the official test and then start tweaking it a little bit, so that while I'm actually working on, let's say, a new feature that's involved in that checkout process, I don't want to manually go in and, like, let's say the thing I'm working on is at the very end. I don't want to have to, walk through a process that could take, a couple of minutes each time just to test one tiny thing, like, maybe some CSS, or the total amount of the thing, did it calculate correctly at the very last screen, stuff like that. So what I will do is, I'll make my change, and then I will just rerun my test so that it will fly through. Because you saw how quickly, especially on the example tests, it flies through things pretty quickly, much quicker than a human, tapping and typing, filling out forms, hitting submit. So you can get that all done much quicker and get to that result you're looking for to make sure your work was good. So yeah, I don't know, just some ideas there. Their documentation's pretty thorough. And like I said, there are paid things for this, but it's all mostly their, actually completely, I think, involving their actual web version of this, where you can set things up to, let's see, I don't really want to make this an advertisement for them. I'm not. So I'll try to keep this limited. Let's see how to get back. Let's see, specs, runs. Okay, so that's what it's called, their dashboard. So that costs money. And I've played with it. I think there might be a free tier. It's very, very limited, kind of cool. So it might be cool for your own personal stuff. I believe they charge for tests, and a test to them is an it. So depending on what the limit is for free, I don't remember. That could add up pretty quickly if you're using a lot of these. So, but anyway, it's basically a more involved version of what you see here. It's gonna, it'll store all your tests in the cloud within their dashboard, so you can go in and you can look at all of the runs that have run. So, like, say you have nightly runs for a client or something, you can go in and log into their dashboard and check, okay, today did the nightly run pass. And I believe you can probably set up notifications and things like that through there. Again, I'm speculating. I haven't used that in a while, but that is their paid thing. But you can also grow your own, and it's not too hard. You can make your own reporting, and you can set up your own kind of internal infrastructure for that too, if you've got the resources, or if you don't have the resources to afford to pay for Cypress's. But anyway, I will leave you with that, and we might dive down this road a little bit more later on. But yep, hope you had fun.